Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I hope you're all having a good day so far and good week, enjoying the weather. If you have good weather where you are, um, thank you for joining. Today's webinar is all about satisfactory academic progress, or SAP, and how to support students who are facing SAP challenges. Pleased to be joined today by one of CSF's Regional College Access Managers, Raul, as well as one of our financial aid partners from Green River College, Beth. And I will let them introduce themselves here shortly. Before we do, I'll go ahead and go over a couple of housekeeping items. Reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to both our WPN YouTube channel as well as our Washington Passport Network website. And you will receive a notification email once the recording has been shared out, once it's ready to be posted. And then this meeting format is intended to create a conversation, so feel free to ask questions and participate. You can always raise your hand to ask a question, and you could also drop them in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat for questions, and I'll field those out to our presenters as we go. And yeah, we will have discussion questions towards the end. And yeah, we'll go ahead and go over today's agenda. The reason this webinar was put together is we noticed some partners have been asking questions about SAP. We have a lot of new people in their roles, and we decided this would be a good refresher for some on SAP policies, but also it might be new information for others. So wanted to kind of go in depth about the SAP policies for both federal and state aid, and then hear from one of our campus partners on how the process looks like for those students who are not meeting SAP requirements and what they do at their school to kind of support students through that. So we'll be looking at the impacts of SAP requirements on financial aid and how to support students through challenges, and also how to use SAP data to identify other areas of need. All right, now go ahead and hand it on over to Raul and Beth.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. With that, my name is Raul Sanchez. I'm known as a Regional College Access Manager for the College Success Foundation. So what that means is we are a team of five, formerly the Washington College Access Network, if you ever worked with us in the past. What we do as RCAMs, we lead college readiness efforts in Washington. So this can encompass increasing FAFSA and WASPA completion rates, raising awareness about the College Bound program, and we also provide tools and training, resources, technical assistance to school staff and community-based partners that are tailored to fit each individual school, district, and community. So if you ever want to work with us when it comes to anything related to college access, we provide practitioners the tools and information needed to promote a mindset that post-secondary education is attainable for all. So we welcome you to reach out to us at any point in time, but I want to pass it off to my colleague so she can introduce herself.
Hi, y'all. My name is Beth Hawes. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at Green River College, which, if you're not aware, Green River is a community college in Auburn, Washington, so about 25 miles south of Seattle.
And then we'll go ahead and get started with our content. So with that, we'll be talking about satisfactory academic progress. For most colleges, all the colleges usually refer to this as SAP. So we'll be referring to that acronym as we go through. And with that, it is usually reviewed quarterly, or if you're attending a semester school, it's reviewed on a semester basis. Institutions assess satisfactory academic progress for all aid applicants, even if they didn't previously receive aid. So even if they didn't complete the FAFSA or WASFA in the past, any of the progress that they've made towards their academic career is being considered when determining aid eligibility for future terms. Students do need to meet the minimum eligibility requirements that are described in federal and state policies to be able to receive financial aid.
And I'm just going to chime in real quick. The majority of schools do review SAP every term. It is not required, though. The federal regulations only require that we review it every year, like once during an aid year, but the majority of schools do choose to do it at the end of every term. No, there are some 4-year schools though in Washington State that only do it annually.
Mhm. On the next slide, we'll cover minimum SAP requirements. So there's what's known as pace of progression or credit completion rate, which we will cover, which is successfully complete at least 67% of all attempted credits. There's also a minimum grade point average, GPA, of a 2.0 for undergraduate students and any baccalaureate students. Then there's a 3.0 GPA minimum requirement for any graduate student. There's also the limit of maximum time frame, limited to 150% of the attempted credits based on the declared degree program credit requirements. So first off, pace of progression. When the student needs to complete at least 67% of any attempted credits for all their terms combined. This is the minimum rate needed to complete a 4-year degree in the 6 years at full-time enrollment. So whether the student's been attending at least part-time, full-time, all of the credits add up to at least a maximum of 6 years worth of time attempted. So PACE is evaluated at least once a year, but can happen more often. All Washington CTCs evaluate SAP at the end of every quarter. And like mentioned by Beth previously, some of the schools will do it on an annual basis. Students who do drop below the minimum will be suspended and are ineligible for future financial aid until they either successfully appeal the decision or regain meeting all SAP requirements on their own. And with that, calculating PACE, the formula is all of their completed credits are divided by the total of attempted credits, which will equal their PACE progression. Undergraduates who intend to graduate in 4 years do need to complete an average of 15 credits per term to be able to complete their program within 4 years. Successfully completed credits include those that earn a letter grade of D minus or better, which is a zero point 0.7 GPA or above for that specific course, an S or a P. GRC requires 1.0 or above specifically for that. And then anything that counts as an attempted credit is going to be all the credits that are described above as being passed, as either earning a D, S, or P. Courses that were failed, repeated, withdrawn, and incompletes all count as attempted credits, but not completed. Any accepted transfer credits are also included in the total attempted credits. All accepted test credits are included as well. So if they took the CLEP, advanced placement, IRB, anything within that is also going to count as the number of credits attempted, as well as the number of credits passed if they were received a grade or received the credit for it. And then all accepted running start in college and the high school credits are also included in the pace of progression. So that's something a student needs to keep in mind when they're looking into possibly maybe failing a course, needing to withdraw from a course. There could be some repercussions with those actions. So we want to encourage students to make sure they're looking into their pace progression and working with their financial aid offices. And then the next one is minimum grade point average. This one tends to be pretty straightforward, where undergraduate students and both baccalaureate students need to maintain a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better. So this isn't just the term GPA, this is the GPA that the school has for the entire academic career of what's been either transferred in or what they are currently attempting, depending on how the school calculates cumulative GPA. So the GPA is reviewed at the end of each term. Students with a cumulative GPA below 2.0 may be suspended, ineligible for further financial aid until they successfully appeal or regain meeting all of their SAP requirements on their own. So that's one thing they do need to check in with their college if they are at risk of going below a 2.0, working with their academic advisors too. And then for graduate students, they do have a higher GPA threshold of 3.0 or better. So making sure that they complete their academics with the 3.0 or higher with a cumulative GPA of that. and it is reviewed at the end of each term. Students below that will be suspended from getting access to any financial aid funds. Then there's the maximum time frame. So this is the limit that students have to be able to access financial aid. Once again, whether they've accessed financial aid in the past or not, federal and state aid eligibility is suspended once it's determined the student cannot complete their degree within 150% of the credit hours allotted for the degree. So the requirement may be evaluated at the end of each term. 100% of the credits required for the program and suspended once they have attempted 125%. All attempted credits are counted in the maximum time frame evaluation. This includes anything that was transferred in and accepted, running start, college, and the high school credits. Only one major degree program can be considered for the maximum time frame calculation. So keeping that in mind, if a student is double majoring, taking a minor, anything within that, the maximum time frame is allotted based on that degree program that the student declared. The maximum time frame applies whether or not the student received aid for the attempted or completed credits. So even if they didn't complete the FAFSA in the past, even if they are taking credits on their own, whether it's in the summer and they don't want to apply for financial aid for them, those credits are still counted when transferred into the school. A baccalaureate degree students, their warning status at 180 attempted quarter credits, they will be notified if once they reach that amount, letting you know your time is running low. You need to make sure you're working with an academic advisor to make sure you can complete your degree on time. And this will be a different amount for schools that are on a semester basis. But your credits, if attempted over 225, will be suspended from accessing financial aid. There are opportunities for students to be able to appeal with the circumstances when it comes to going over that amount, being close, if they're a couple terms off, depending on the circumstances that they were involved in. There's a possibility that their timing could be extended. But graduate degree students are warning at 45 attempted quarter credits, suspension at 90 attempted quarter credits if their degree program is 2 years of the program. And then let's see, maximum time frame for a 2 years associate's degree. That time frame is still going to apply at community colleges as well. Their limit is going to be a little bit lower. Warning occurs at 112 attempted quarter credits and suspension at 135 attempted quarter credits. One thing to keep in mind with the 2-year associate degree, that limit then is no longer applicable when you go to a 4-year degree school. Then you're with the 4-year degree limit to be able to attempt the credits when it comes to financial aid access. And then eligibility for aid. Oh, I got myself a little bit ahead earlier. Can be extended to a student with one bachelor's degree, one baccalaureate degree, and one graduate degree if they successfully appeal the suspension. So this will mean working with the financial aid offices, going through their appeal process when it comes to maximum time frame or SAP eligibility. Students attending for a second post-baccalaureate or graduate degree will be considered to have exceeded the maximum time frame for financial aid. So that's something students need to keep in mind if they're looking to access federal aid, like federal direct loans for their second bachelor's degree. And then maximum time frame exceptions can be based on courses required to complete the degree. So that's something that the student needs to be working with the financial aid office to understand what's being counted and what are the limitations if they're getting close to that maximum time frame. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Beth for the next part of the presentation.
All right. So, Raul, will you just keep driving for me and I'll let you know when I need to switch screens there? Great, thank you. Okay, so this is actually a snapshot from Green River's website. Basically, there are 5 different statuses that students need to know about when there are determinations made about their SAP status. The first one is they're in good standing. That's great. That's where we want everybody to be. Their GPA is 2.0 or higher. They passed all the classes that they attempted in the prior term, and they're on track to finish on time. So they are that maximum time frame. They're still going to be within their 150%. What's important to know is that we are actually obligated to put students onto suspension if they exceed maximum time frame. as soon as we calculate that they are not going to be able to complete. So it doesn't actually have to, they don't actually have to hit that 150%. If we do a calculation after, let's say, 4 quarters and find out that they won't be able to finish within 150%, we have to put them on. Oh, thank you, Ozzy. um, Financial aid warning. Students go on warning when their GPA is between a 1.0 and a 1.9. And as Raul mentioned, this is a Green River policy. That isn't necessarily the federal. Schools are allowed to make SAP policies that are more stringent than what is required by the state or the federal government. We just can't be more lax. So at Green River, it's if you earn a 1.0 to a 1.9, or you completed 67% to 99% of your attempted credits in the prior term. When you're on warning, you can still get financial aid, but you need to make sure that you hit good standing in the following quarter. Otherwise, you'll be in what we call back-to-back. If you hit warning 2 terms in a row, you end up being suspended. Financial aid suspension, you completed less than 67% of your credits. Your quarterly GPA was below a 1.0, and this is where the cumulative GPA starts to come in. If your cumulative GPA is less than a 2.0, once you've attended 6 or more quarters. So at Green River, it's your cumulative GPA doesn't come into effect until you've attended 6 quarters, and it is 6 quarters. It's not a number of credits. So if you take one class, if you only take one class each quarter, your cumulative GPA will kick in after 6 classes. That's just the way we do it. Financial aid probation. This means you submitted an appeal, you were suspended, you submitted an appeal, it was approved. You can get financial aid for the following quarter, but again, you have to meet all of the SAP rules during that time, so then in your following quarter, you have to be in good standing again. Otherwise, you're back on suspension, and it gets less and less likely that we will approve an appeal the more times you do it in a row. And then maximum time frame, as Raul talked about, if you've used up to 150% of the credits for your program, or we see that you won't be able to complete the program within 150%, you need to submit a special request called a petition to extend to get more financial aid. The root reason behind this is the 67% passing. If you're passing at least 67% of your classes, you will graduate within the 150% time frame. And kind of the real basis for this is your lifetime eligibility for Pell is 6 years at full time. So they want you to be able to get a 4-year degree before you run out of Pell. So it's not just us being mean. I did see a question in the chat. Does SAP suspension follow students from one institution to another? No, it does not. However, if the students are transferring credits from one institution to another, when credits get transferred in, those do become a part of your record at the new school and do get considered as part of your SAP calculation for time frame and cumulative GPA. Yeah, good question. We have had students who they just have kind of been on SAP too many times and we can't approve them anymore and they end up moving schools. But the flip to that is if you are on SAP, for example, let's say you're on SAP at Green River, you go to Highline for a year or two and come back, you're still on SAP at Green River, regardless of what your status was at Highline. The SAP appeal process at Green River, appeals must be submitted by the posted deadline for the next quarter semester academic year. That totally varies by school. Every school is totally able to make that up based on their own policies. SAP deadlines may affect tuition holds and disbursement of aid for the term. I know there are some schools that say you have to have your SAP appeal in before the start of the term, hard off. Green River, again, we tend to be a little more lenient. We do have a couple different deadlines for different things, but that's up to the school. So it's really important that students be aware of what those deadlines are for their institution. Supporting documentation may be required and again, varies by school. So please contact your financial aid office to find out exactly what they want. And what they consider sufficient. Reinstatement of aid may require an education or academic plan. This is something we've started recently at Green River. When we see a student is getting close to where they won't be able to finish within 150%, we actually require that they go meet with an advisor to create an academic plan, and then they have to follow that. If an appeal cannot be approved, or if a student chooses not to submit an appeal, they may be able to self-reinstate their eligibility for aid for a following term by paying for a minimum number of credits a pocket, completing all credits, and earning at least the required minimum GPA to improve their academic standing. Again, these requirements may vary by the school. Just stopping out for a period of time does not reset SAP statuses. Students are often surprised to find out. One of my favorite statements on a SAP appeal was from a gentleman who had been a Running Start student and hadn't done well and left, joined the military, came back at the age of 35, and was surprised that he was on SAP still from 17 years prior. And so his SAP appeal was just, I was a Running Start student, and then I was in the military for 15 years. And we're like, okay, great, sounds good. You have learned the lessons. But yeah, so self-reinstatement is basically again, it varies at school. At Green River, you have to take 5 credits and you cannot use financial aid. You have to pay out of pocket. You can use other funding. A lot of times we work with our workforce team to arrange funding for students to cover that 5 credits. So they can take the class, and as long as they do well, they pass their class, they pass all their attempted credits, then we will reinstate their financial aid. Let's see, any questions? Okay. The appeal review, again, like with all things, this very much depends on the school. Appeals may be reviewed solely by financial aid or a committee representing several areas of the college and student experience, such as advising, faculty, etc. At Green River, it is something we do in financial aid. That's simply because of the quantity we receive. We get probably about 250 to 300 SAP appeals every quarter. And so trying to convene a committee from across campus would make that impossible. But I do know that there are schools that have committees and they meet and they will make a determination as a group on whether or not they'll approve a student appeal. The number of appeals that will be accepted per year and/or over a student's period of attendance varies by school and is generally tied to the student ability to meet time frame and GPA requirements. Again, I've heard Green River doesn't have a fast and hard rule about how many times you can appeal. I have heard other schools that say you get 1 a year or you get 3 in a lifetime. Like you get 3 in the course of your program. It all depends on the individual institution and kind of what their approach to things is. So this is why I was invited to come speak about Green River's experiences. This has been sort of a pet project of mine over the last few years. And it was really inspired by a member of our financial aid team who is an alum of Green River, who said that when he was first a student, he got on SAP and he got the message, just the general letter that we sent out to everybody. And to him, what we were saying was, you are stupid. You do not belong here. You're not cut out for college. You should just quit. By no means was that the actual words that were in our letter, but that is how he internalized it. So for us as an open access institution where the vast majority of our students are first gen and low income, that's not the kind of communication that we wanted to be sharing out. So we have been doing a lot of work to change our philosophical approach to SAP as one of an opportunity for intervention rather than a punitive action. Students are not on SAP because they're bad at school. Students are on SAP because life has the audacity to stop being life just because you're in school. Every single person on my team has been on SAP, and we tell students that openly. And now we are all doing this professionally. We all got our degrees. We're all doing financial aid as a job. So we really want students to understand that this isn't a barrier and shouldn't stop them from attending. It's just a chance for them to pause, think about what happened, think about how they can approach it differently. And it has made a big change. Just anecdotally, we had, I want to say before we started making some of the changes, I want to say in probably like the 2022-23 school year, 100% of our passport students who got on SAP stopped out. They left. 2 years later, after doing a lot of work with our process and our messaging and how we do supports, 70% of them retained, which is a huge change in a relatively short amount of time. So it does have impacts. It is work, but it really does positively impact, especially some of our most risk students. We also have worked really hard to develop good relationships with other departments on campus who we can do wraparound support with. Because Lord knows we see things in SAP appeals, we read things in SAP appeal statements that there's a lot of times that I just want to be like, I wish you would tell me less. Like, I don't need to hear all of this. It is hard for us to take that in. So we do have ways to give referrals to students to other resources on campus that are there that could support them. As employees of an institution of higher education, we are mandatory Title IX reporters. So we have a system in place for reporting if a student discloses to us that they have been a victim of interpersonal violence, domestic violence, stalking, sexual harassment, any of those. We have a process for that. We also give referrals to Benefits Hub. We're really lucky. We have a very robust Benefits Hub here on campus, and that includes students who may be struggling with housing insecurity, homelessness, food insecurity. They need support in getting basic like electric bills paid, things like that. If they are just struggling with classes, with the content, we have pretty good tutoring centers here that we'll give student referrals to. We still have a TRIO program. We love our TRIO program. We work very closely with our TRIO program. So if students are talking about they are struggling with money or they're first gen or they have disabilities, a lot of times we'll give them referrals to TRIO to see if they can get supports there. Again, also our disability support services team. We know that mental health is a huge issue for a lot of our students, especially if they're struggling with financial issues or family issues or any of those other things. So we do a lot of referrals to our counseling services team. And then another one that we work really closely with is our passport support team, which we're super lucky that we have a close relationship with them. One big thing that we do is all of our students who are flagged as passport students at the end of every term, right after I run the new SAP statuses, I share the results of a query that tell them the SAP status of every single student who is flagged as being passport. And then they are able to do much more personalized outreach to those students to make sure that they're able to get their SAP appeals in. We also use that to help identify potential UHY candidates or students who might qualify. We have the SSEH, Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness grant, that we can use for emergency funding. So we also will do referrals for assistance with getting funding for housing that we see come through our SAP appeals. So we really do try to use SAP as a good way to provide students with some of those wraparound services. And as I mentioned earlier, I made the mistake of digging deeply into the handbook and discovered that we're supposed to be doing maximum timeframe calculations before they actually hit 150%. And so how we have worked that out is if we see that usually after 3 terms of attendance, if you haven't been passing 75% of your classes, we'll do a quick calculation to see if it looks like you'll be able to finish your program within 150%. And if you can't, then we do actually require students to go meet with an advisor and create an educational plan that really helps them kind of focus. These are the classes I need to take to finish, and I need to make sure that I'm passing them. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a good place for me to chime in. And I just wanted to ask the audience if anyone's willing to share out anything their campus may be doing to support students who are experiencing challenges with meeting SAP requirements. And that's whether you're working in financial aid or if you're working with or as part of a different department on campus. But yeah, I just wanted to ask the audience here to see if anyone's willing to share out anything um, that they may be doing differently or similar to what Beth was describing. And if you're not feeling like coming off mute, you can totally drop it in the chat too, and I can read it out.
Yeah, I'm always looking for other ideas about how we can improve our process. I clearly have a lot of feelings about this particular aspect of my work. So, okay, well, let's move on. And if you think of more questions later, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, so here's questions.
Yeah. I think that was pretty much it as far as our content. And yeah, just again, wanted to give folks an opportunity to share out here. And I do see a comment in the chat. And I'll go ahead and read it out. It says at Eastern Washington University, we have a good relationship with the Passport team, but I would like for us to increase our work with areas such as food bank, tutoring, etc. Those were very good suggestions. Awesome.
Yeah, we're really lucky at Green River because our benefits hub is actually a part of a group called the Center for Transformational Wellness, which does kind of a lot of different things. They're the home for the benefits hub. They're the ones who oversee our food pantry. They do a lot of our work with students who are in recovery, supporting pregnant and parenting students, students who are victims of interpersonal violence. So and they are our passport folks and they do the SSEH. So it's sort of a one-stop shop for a lot of our students who are on SAP. So that makes it easy for us. But yes, I definitely recommend just trying to make those connections and build those relationships. Oh, we'll see. Perfect. We're making connections right here in the chat.
Any other thoughts? Um, Joanne, we also lean on Passport for assistance with students on um, is that suspension
Suspension.
that have been neglecting the students in the warning status.
Yeah, we don't do as much connecting with students in warning status as we do with students in suspension. That's something I would like to be a little more robust about. Um, we don't have a really high percentage of students who do like back-to-back warning. A lot of times it is just sort of a like, ooh, I had one really rough quarter, and now I'm back on my regular meet status. So
Is that Beth, is that an area where you guys do you guys collect that data as far as like how many students who are on warning get back in
um,
good standing after one term?
no, that's kind of an anecdotal thing. I do have ways that I could check over the life of a student. Um, we just don't we don't seem to come across it a lot, so it hasn't been a big area of concern.
I see another comment in the chat. It says Central Washington University has just started offering SAP workshops at the start of each quarter. In one room, we have financial aid staff, academic advisors, student accounts, and basic needs staff. This is to help SAP suspended students receive the input they need in one place. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'd be curious to know kind of what it took to get that started, and if it was just as simple as like having a comfort conversation with those different departments there. I see Joanne, Eastern Washington University does not allow back-to-back appeals unless the student has two different issues from two different terms.
And I know that's pretty common. That actually was a part of our process, and still is technically part of our process, that we wouldn't accept SAP appeals if it's kind of for the same reason. Like if you're saying it was a work conflict last quarter and the reason it was approved is because you said that you got that figured out, I know you still have work conflict. You haven't really addressed the issue. We tend to be a little more lenient on that. Like we will point to that as a reason to deny if it gets far enough down the road, but it's not something we check every term, mostly because of the volume.
And then Beth had another question, but also for others in attendance. Just curious if we're noticing any trends regarding SAP, like maybe more or less students not meeting SAP requirements just in general in the last year or so, last few years. I'm just curious if there's any trends that we're seeing.
Um, we are getting more picky because we're one of the schools that is getting really hit by fraud. And so they're going so far as to submit SAP appeals that are sometimes clearly AI generated statements, or you'll hear very similar statements from multiple students. That's part of why we had to create some metrics, and that's part of the go meet with an advisor. It's really hard to meet with an advisor and create an ed plan when you are not a real person. So that's a big one that we've seen. We have seen an uptick simply because we have seen an uptick in the number of fraudulent students. I do feel like I see more post-COVID. I feel like I see mental health as a larger issue, and I remember it being kind of in the before times. But I wasn't here very long before COVID started. So it might have just been that was one term, one or two terms that weren't so hard on students.
Any other questions, thoughts, or ideas you'd like to share? Going once, going twice. All right, well, if you think of something after the fact that you want to ask either Beth or the Passport team at CSF or Raul and his team with the Regional College Access, here's our contact info. Feel free to reach out. There's Beth's email at the bottom, and then the RCAM email for CSF there. You could also get in touch with the Passport team using the passport at collegesuccessfoundation.org. And also, I
And
know, go ahead.
yeah, Sean Warner is my assistant director who sometimes does this same little spiel. So if you have questions for either of us, you can email either of us.
And I did want to say, I know probably everyone here is already part of the Washington Passport Network uh, email list. But if you aren't, for whatever reason, and you'd like to get added, you could do so by going to WashingtonPassportNetwork.org, or you can also reach out to us and we'll get you added. That way you can stay up to date with all the news from the Washington Passport Network, as well as getting our regular newsletter that we send out every other week. Alrighty, well, I think that is it from us. Like I said, since you register for this webinar, you'll get an email notification once the recording is ready to be shared. Um, Other than that, feel free to reach out if you want to connect or if you have any questions. And yeah, stay tuned for our next webinar. We should be announcing in the next couple of weeks here. So thank you very much for joining. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.